So you're thinking about becoming a police officer, or you want to know more about the profession, and hey, what better way to do it than a police ride along? Can you still do them? What's involved? Let's discuss. Before we get started, I have two gifts in the description for you. One is the Getting Started Workshop. It's going to walk you through every phase of the hiring process. Plus, there's some hidden bonuses in there that I think you're going to like. Next is a coaching call with any member of my team or even myself if you'd like, where we can go over your police hiring process, get you on the path to getting hired quicker and faster. Now, police ride-alongs. What's in them? What are they? Do I need to do one? Can I just sign up? And a lot of things have changed when it comes to police ride-alongs, especially over the last few years. Nowadays, law enforcement departments or agencies aren't always offering ride-alongs for just the everyday citizen. Some departments still do it, and thankfully I'm seeing more and more kind of come back to that. But at the same point in time, a lot of them have went to this path of you only get to do a ride-along if you're applying to the department or some other, extenuating circumstances, right? You're on the board of the, city council or something like that. But yes, it's something that they have a lot of candidates do these days rather than just everyday citizens. Now, I actually disagree with this, so to say, because I would prefer a candidate do a ride along before they're in the hiring process with that department for multiple reasons. One of them being is it's going to give you an insight to that department. If you do our department audit to help you identify which departments to apply to, the last one is, do you support them? Do you support their mission? Do you support how they behave? And one of those considerations is really hard to see when you don't actually get to experience what they do in a day-to-day. And if they're not allowing you to do a police ride-along, it's going to be really hard to see how their officers operate. Now, what does that mean? It also means that when you're going through the hiring process, all you have is what's in the news, what you know personally about it, what you can find research, and you have no firsthand knowledge of how their officers operate. And some people might say, well, one officer doesn't reflect the department. No, that's true, but you do know that that officer, whether good or bad, is in that department, and it can give you a better understanding. So another thing with this is, if you're already in the hiring process when you're doing your ride-along, that's another time for them to evaluate you. And I guarantee you that as soon as you're done with that ride-along, that officer that took you, whether an FTO or just a regular patrol officer or whatever, that officer that took you on the ride-along is going back to report to the hiring officials or to the hiring sergeant or supervisors or hiring board, whatever, or they're writing a report about how they believe you did. Now that leads individuals to the question, should I ask questions? Should I not ask questions? How many questions do I ask? What do I wear? And these are all things to consider during the ride-along. A lot of times I'm always up here preaching, wear a suit and tie for males, wear a suit for women. Well, a lot of times with ride-alongs, they don't want you to do that. One, it makes you stand out a bit, and two, those are very difficult outfits to move around in. And while ride-alongs typically don't respond to really high-profile calls because you have a civilian in the vehicle with you and you don't want to put them in jeopardy, you still never know what a traffic stop may lead into, or if there is an emergency call where all units need to respond. And if you need to, say, get away from the scene quickly, it's really hard to do that in, say, heels or dress shoes and a suit. A tie also makes it easier for someone to grab a hold of you and have good neck control of your upper body. So there's a multiple things here. So a lot of times they will give you a dress code. Hey, slacks, maybe some professional boots and a polo shirt, or maybe they'll tell you to, hey, have some professional or clean sneakers or something like that, and then some professional looking pants and a polo shirt. Usually that's what I see. Now, what I will tell you for that specific instance, the dress code for a ride-along, don't just assume, hey, that Frank said I need to wear slacks, police boots and a dress or a collared shirt. No, one thing to always do, specifically with a ride along, is to reach out to them and say, hey, is there any specific attire you'd like me to wear for this ride along that you guys have for policy or that you feel is the best fit? Right? Obviously, they're probably not going to want you to come in a t-shirt and workout shorts. You still have to look professional, because while you're riding around with that department, you're going to be reflecting that department, and you're going to be making actual stops and contacting actual citizens and doing, actual police work. So you need to properly reflect the department while doing the ride along. So those are a couple things. Let's kind of keep going here with it. Another thing that I would really, really consider with your ride along, and the fact that if you're not able to do one prior to it, is the most critical one here for a ride along is what you share, right? So I mentioned that you're being assessed by the individual if you're in the application process. But if you're going in there sharing your whole life story, right, they're going to take that, as I said, and go back to back to the hiring official and say, hey, did you know that this individual, had a DUI in the past, or this individual, that is information for your background investigator only, because at that point in time, he or she is going to write it up. They're going to evaluate you, see if that information is pertinent to your hiring process now, right? And see, hey, was that 20 years ago? Was that 2 years ago? Okay, 2 years ago DUI, it's not going to look good, right? So that type of stuff is going to be really critical when it comes to you speaking. Now, a lot of individuals say, well, I just want to ask questions. You should ask questions, but don't ask questions just for the sake of asking questions. If you're just sitting there just motor mouthing the whole time, you're going to annoy that individual. A lot of these officers are used to riding solo, right? So, which means they don't have a partner in the vehicle with them outside of maybe they're doing field training for another officer, for a newer officer, or they're partnered up with an officer for a time to complete a special assignment. But a lot of times, patrol officers, you're riding around solo. If that becomes the case, right, and you're just in there just going crazy on questions like, hey, how do you like it? That's fine. What's your pay? What's benefits look like? All fine questions, but if you're just shooting them off one after another, and then you say, hey, tell me about yourself. Well, maybe that officer doesn't want to share anything personal with you. When did you become a law enforcement? Once again, maybe they don't want to share that. I'm not telling you not to ask questions, and I don't want to convey it that way. I'm just saying find that balance. This isn't a fine line. Just find a nice balance of asking appropriate questions that would better your hiring process and the knowledge that you need to know, rather than just being someone who just gabs the entire shift. Because if you're with them for an entire 8 or 12-hour shift, they're at some point going to tell you, hey, ease up on the questions here. Like, I'll answer questions, but ease up. I'm not going to be answering questions every 2 minutes. So you're going through, you apply for a ride along, or you apply to the department, they give you a ride along. Sometimes they will mandate a ride along, saying like, hey, you need to go do this ride along. It is an evaluation. Use it that way. If you can get a ride along with a department prior to applying, I highly recommend it. Gives you better insight to the department, and you can decide at that point, is that department in your top 3 that you're going to submit an application to. Attire, make sure you check with them. Don't overgab, and really just kind of sit back and, I won't say sit back, but observe, learn, have situational awareness, see what they're going to. Some ride-along officers are FTOs, which are field training officers. So when they have someone else in the car, they're in FTO mode. So they might be asking you questions like, hey, what was that sign back there? Don't think that they're coming down on you, right? They're not. It's kind of a test. It's great if you get it. I'm not beating you up if you don't, because you've had no training. Hey, what street are we on? What direction are we heading? What call just came through the radio? They might ask you questions like this. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get them. They should understand. I can't guarantee it, but they should understand that you're not a trained officer yet, right? You haven't been through the academy, you haven't been hired, and that's kind of where you'll sit with it. But they're just trying to see, hey, does this individual have any, say, natural talent for situational awareness? There's more to it than this, but this is a good starting point when it comes to your ride-along call the department and see if they do a ride-along. If they say we only do ride-alongs for applicants, well, then you got to evaluate the department prior to doing submitting an application with the limited information you can get access to. If you know someone in the department, great. Sit down, talk with them. If you don't, then do your own research. Try to figure out, look up their last year's minutes on what their report was, if the department publishes it publicly. There's a lot of different ways you can find information out there. So once again, those gifts are in the description. The Getting Started workshop is going to walk you through every phase of the hiring process. Plus, there's some hidden bonuses, as well as a coaching call with any member of my team or even myself. We'd be glad to see you on there, help you get through it, help you isolate the departments right for you, and then get hired faster with them. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.